Hello, everybody. Welcome to Orgasmica, the podcast where we talk all about sexuality and healing and all beautiful things that embrace these two things. Today, I have a beautiful, amazing, inspiring as hell guest. Oh my God, I'm so excited that you're here. I am so excited. Oh my God, her name is Miriam Isa. She is the definition of multidimensional power. You can see her lighting up your screen as entertainment new host with over 300 million views. But these days, she's lighting up our hearts and minds as a transformational coach, healer, and bridge builder. She has led conversations between Jews and non-Jews in the Middle East, coach change makers across the U.S., fiercely committed to democracy, dignity, and the truth that when pain isn't transformed, it's transmitted. She is here to talk all about healing and all these beautiful conversations, especially in the time that it is now, that we need voices like yours. So I am extremely grateful that you get to share that with our audience and that we get to talk about subjects that, my whole thing in this platform is to talk about subjects that are seen as taboo, as uncomfortable, as like people don't know what to do with these subjects, and the only thing that they can do is either hide or fight or put their heads in the sand. And it's important for me to talk about these things, and what you're doing are themes that people want to hide. And specifically in this moment, I know a lot of people that listen to us are in Latin America, but in this moment in the US, and specifically in this moment in Los Angeles, which is where we are living. It's a very intense moment for many reasons, but specifically in the past couple of days, it's about immigration and how these subjects have been handled, have been approached by the government at large, and the division that existing with so much hate in the forefront. And when I was reading your bio, and the main phrase, right, that you have put there is, when pain isn't transformed, it's transmitted. And I am seeing, in my perspective, I am seeing people that lead countries that my first question when they speak, I'm like, who hurt you? Because obviously, you're in a lot of fucking pain in order to freaking talk like this. Like, what happened in your childhood, man? Like, who hurt you though this bad so you can spew so much hate towards other humans and other people? And I want to talk first about that. What does that mean to you? When did you have that realization of this phrase, right? Of like, okay, because we can say things, right? Like, yes, pain is transformed. If it's not transformed, it's transmitted, or like hurt people, things that we hear all the time. But then we live it, right? Then we experience them. And then we're like, oh, this is what these phrases meant, right? This is what they meant when they say that. It's like, oh, I was hurt, so I hurt somebody else. Or, oh, this person that hurt me, I can see their pain. And so what was your first encounter with this truth?
Oh my God. You've touched on so many things. First of all, thank you for the beautiful and kind introduction. And I love that you are the kind of woman who, using your storytelling and just who you are in the world, you go straight to the jugular of where there is tension. You said earlier that some of these conversations are uncomfortable. I feel like discomfort is my birthplace and also my birthright. And while the rest of the world avoids the taboo topics, those taboo topics cannot be healed unless we actually run toward them, unpack them, sit in discomfort, and not attack others while we are feeling triggered.
Oof, amen to that, yes.
And to answer your question of when is the first time that concept became real for me in the DNA of my soul, that when pain is not transformed, it is transmitted, I would say from a really early age. First, let me just say, now as an adult woman, I am a half Latina, half Arab, American woman in love with a Jewish man. My entire identity literally lives in the epicenter of tension. All of those demographics are warring with each other, and they're all a part of my story. I am constantly being pulled in different directions. And I do not want to succumb to the urge of hardening and of fighting. I want to be soft when the world becomes hard. When is the first time that I became aware that pain creates violence and poor leadership, I would say as a young girl, I was the daughter and granddaughter of refugees, both on the Cuban and Lebanese side of my family. These were people with so much trauma that was never processed. It was just, hid under the rug because como tú sabes, la vida de los inmigrantes, the way the immigrant life is, you don't have time to go to a therapist. You don't have the money to create an arsenal of tools for your pain. You are just trying to survive. We come from generations of survivors. And that is a beautiful thing. But that does not mean that they are not immune to adopting these toxic behaviors as survival mechanisms. So, mi abuela on my Lebanese side was a child bride who was married as a child, and she tried to escape, and they beat her in the face and left a mark on her face.
Oh my goodness.
And on the Cuban side of my family, my mom had to work doing slave labor in Cuba in order to leave the island to come here.
Wow.
For freedom. We grew up in deep poverty. I was raised in a 1-bedroom apartment where I shared a full-size bed with my mother until I went to college.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I didn't have my own bed till I went to college. And I would say there was a way that my family dealt with conflict that just created more conflict and more defensiveness. And I became fluent in everyone's pain. I became the person in my family that would translate different people to each other because I could tell, oh, you don't really mean this. This is just pain coming out as an attack. You don't mean this either. This is pain coming out as an attack for you. So instead of taking everyone's attacks, like what they were saying on the surface, I learned to peel a layer and see what was the subtext, what was the emotion happening behind the attack. And it was really just a battlefield of people in pain.
Yeah. Were they able to conceptualize that? Were they able to understand that?
It's taken a really long time.
Yeah.
I think they are still in that process. I also want to say something else. When we say that pain that is not transformed is transmitted, that isn't necessarily even transmitted to someone else. It can be. It could be to your partner, to your children. If you are a leader who's traumatized, it could be to your people or the people in the neighboring countries. But sometimes it's pain that you use to hurt yourself. My father figure was my uncle, and he was the greatest man I've ever met, the most beautiful human. He embodied the idea of making the world a better place. But he had so much trauma as a refugee Cuban. There was so much pain that he never looked at. He was so afraid of opening the door to the pain. He lived with the fear that if he ever sat in it, he wouldn't recover. And in November of 2022, he took his own life. And so,
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. When you survive that kind of grief, suicide grief, it forever shapes you. It forever changes you. It forever becomes a thread in your fabric.
Yeah.
So I think he is an example of pain that never got to be seen, that never got to be named, that never got to be empathized with. And then it killed him from the inside.
Yeah. That's a really hard reality, and it's very truth. And I know when I talk to older generation, and I talk to my dad or my uncles or my mother-in-law, I think the common threat with that, my dad used to get really defensive about me asking or mentioning any type of oh, my grandfather did this, or in our childhood this happened, and he would get defensive in the sense of did anything was missing from your life? Did I not give you everything? That type of thing. And he was and then he would send me, I remember one day he sent me this meme of of course it was supposed to be funny, but the sense of you in your ceremony telling your ancestors that you forgive them after they have fought wars and, being immigrants and do these things, and it was kind of yes, of course you have to ask, you have to forgive these people who fought so much. And I was no, you're missing the point. I am very, very well aware that my grandmothers and my great grandmothers and my dad and my mom they didn't have the chance to. It's not that they didn't do it. It's because they living in a different, they were living in a different world where, you know, therapy was not a part, like maybe sharing their feelings in a certain way. A lot of part of the Mexican culture was like, just deal with it, have a drink and like move on, you know, like move on, like stop complaining and move on. Don't complain and keep going, you know, type of thing. And so, and then with my mother-in-law, I remember she kept saying things like, if I open the Pandora box, I feel like, and I feel like that with a lot of people, they're like, I can't, because if I open it, it's a lot of it's going to come out and it's going to destroy me.
Right.
Not knowing that they're tools for it not to destroy you. And when you open it, it doesn't all come out like at the same time. Like it's just like, ta-da! No, it doesn't. It's like, you know, you pick at little things and one thing then takes the other thing out. But
you slowly build your courage muscle to take on more. But you just mentioned, you know, having the tools to deal with it. I also want to say, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, I don't know that every community has the same access to tools.
No.
Like, we live in the West in California where people have this arsenal. They go to therapy, they listen to the podcast, they do ayahuasca, they do the psychedelic therapy, they go to the cuddle puddles, you know. And then we come from a generation and we come from a community where there's just less.
Yeah.
There's a gap. And there's literally a linguistic gap.
100%.
Like en el mundo en español, we literally do not have as many tools to our disposal.
Yeah. And we're still a little bit behind into what is acceptable, right? It's like a lot of people are like, therapy, you know, like when I started going through therapy, they're like, are you okay? Like therapy was for the people that just were not okay, or they couldn't. And it was also a sign of a weakness. Specifically with men, it was like a sign of weakness to going to therapy. You're not capable of handling your own shit means that you're weak, right? And that philosophy just kind of like entrances like men just covering it all up. And I am seeing the generation of my father, which is like all my friends' parents, and a lot of these men that build empires or build businesses or build all these other things, they're like having heart attacks and like anxious as hell, and like because they don't have the tools. I'm very grateful that my dad found tools that like helped him and he was able to go in there, but it required a lot of him for him to accept that he needed that, because the culture mentality is handle your stuff yourself, otherwise you're weak, right? And so we don't understand that it is pain for us and it is transmuted. And like you said, not only for the people that are around us, but it could be the stranger on the street, man. Like, you know what I mean? It's like how you talk to people that serve you coffee, that you walk by. Like if you're gonna put that pain somewhere, right?
You're gonna put that pain somewhere. Totally.
Yeah.
I loved what you said earlier, that sometimes you listen to these leaders talk and your first thought is, yo, who hurt you?
Seriously.
I feel the same way. I feel the same when I look at politics in Latin America. I look at clearly the same thing when I'm looking at the demise of what's happening in the United States, the fabric of our country, our leadership or lack of leadership. And I just came back from the Middle East, where I was traveling all over the West Bank in the Palestinian territory as well as Israel. And the people have so much pain. They have so much trauma. Also a part of them deeply wants to build a bridge because their posterity depends on it. Their children and grandchildren depend on their generation building bridges. But then you look at their leadership, and what is being led is a bunch of traumatized men who are weaponizing their pain, exploiting the pain of their residents, of their citizens, and creating an even bigger mess that the next generation will inherit. Not to generalize around gender, because I'm a big lover and advocate of men as well as women. I don't think we need to live in a binary where you're either a feminist or, you know, you're a sexist. We can hold space and love and grace for both. But quite often, too often, men take lives, women create life.
Yeah.
We need more women in power and in leadership. We value human life. It's so much more expensive for us than the way men value human life, because they do not create life with their bodies. We do. Right. When you bear children, you are that less likely to send your children into war, because you know that the mother on the other side, if and when she loses her child, that is a pain in her soul that she will never recover from.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I never thought it like that, but 100%. It's like, and we need more of that. We're trying kind of, I feel like the world, we're trying to like shift it, for, yeah, it's not like men, we don't need you. It's like men, we need you in different spaces now. And we need women in different spaces for the world to kind of shift, because obviously it isn't working. And we're seeing a lot of outrage with men being like, you're not going to take our place. I'm like, we don't want to take your place. We want to just create a different place where you also have a place. But let us have another space in here so we can co-create together. Not just you creating a world where obviously isn't working. It hasn't worked for many, 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 many years. It is pretty wild how, yeah, like if probably women would be at the forefront, probably maybe it wouldn't.
It would look so different.
It would look so different. Women that are in touch with that part. Because I also understand that there are also women who, don't mind.
Have taken on the masculine
Have
rage.
taken on the masculine rage. Have taken the hurt women that hurt women, and et cetera, et cetera.
Hurt women that hurt women, totally.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about this concept of, after we just went through the hurt people, and then the need that we have as the world to healing. And that healing can seem selfish and woo-woo and like, oh yeah, we're all healing here and like, like making fun of each other for being whatever, healing modalities we're doing.
It's easy to dismiss that which you don't understand.
Exactly, first off. And then healing, and a lot of people is like, I don't have time. Right? It was like, I don't have time to meditate. And I don't have time to lay on the grass. I'm like, I don't have time to be in touch with my sexuality. And And I'm like, no. Like shifting that as a priority in your existence, because that's where it's going to come from the rest of the stuff. So healing as a sense of activism. That's something that you mentioned in here. And I want to talk about that because we don't have that concept as a whole. I do say a lot to my clients, like, your orgasm, your rest, all of those things are an act of revolution right now.
Totally.
It's like, it's an act of revolution. It's a peaceful revolution because you're not like killing anybody. You're creating more pleasure. You're creating more things. You're resting so you can say the things. You are being in a receivership so you can talk with the words that will resonate to the world. But we don't still have this change in our brains that actually healing is activism. So tell us why you think that.
Sure. Well, first of all, I think that self-healing and social change are not two different paths. I think they are the same paths on different levels. In order to transform your society, we have to transform our inner world. So to heal yourself means you now get to become an agent of healing your community. And when I think of women and how in most societies women are taught to be small, to smile and be pretty, but like dim yourself when the men walk in. I think that for a woman to truly own her voice, which means don't speed through life and be like, oh, I don't have time to heal. No. Pause. Pausing is your best friend. Silence is your best friend. Attune. Who are you? Who do you want to be next? Design who you want to be in the world. To do that, to know your voice, to know your desires, to know what feels good in your body, and to know who you want to be in the world is a threat to the systems that were built on our silence.
Oof, say that again.
Yeah, I think that to know your voice, to know your pleasure, to know what feels good in your body, to know what feels good in your soul is a threat to the systems in the world that were built on our silence.
Amen to that. Holy shit. Yes. It is a threat. I always say that, the way that I see sexuality, the way I present sexuality is through your sovereignty. And being a sovereign woman, it's very dangerous to the world that people have built this far. because part of being a sovereign woman is you have your own choices and decisions to make about not only who you sleep with, not only how you use your pleasure for, but also what clothes do you buy. Like, people are not going to sell me all the time, like, the push-up bra and the this, and like, this is the fashion now, so you wear that. Because being sovereign is like, I'm going to wear what feels good. I'm going to wear what, like, I'm going to have my hair the way I like it. I don't care if, like, the fashion is now, like, shaving all of our hairs. Like, if I like my hair long, and not going with the trend, but, like, really being like, do I like that?
Yeah, reclaiming your truth and reclaiming your preferences.
There are preferences, and that's what sovereignty is, right? And so being sovereign, it doesn't, like, work for the system of consumerism and of capitalism. Because you kind of get off of it a little bit, because you're like, oh, well, I don't need that, like, I don't need to acquire all these things to make me feel this, or I don't need this. Like, you need different things, and then you will acquire the things that you want, but from that sovereign place. And so they are not going to sell you 17 million things just because, and you're not going to just buy 17 million things, or, just buy online or whatever it is to fill a hole inside of yourself. You're gonna buy consciously something that you actually need, or actually feels good, or like from a different space. So I agree completely. And like, part of the system, it is silencing women and not making them sovereign. And it is an act of revolution for ourselves. And then you said, it is, do you feel like once we heal ourselves, it is our duty to then pass along this?
To pass along our healing?
Yeah, to pass along this information. Like, how do you see that?
I mean, I often think of, I want to be in service to my great-great-grandchildren. What decisions do I have to make now so that the version of my DNA that they inherit is the one that makes them feel free and healed? I don't want to be one more generation that a great-granddaughter has to think and meditate and say, I forgive you for all the mistakes that you made and all the wounds that I inherited.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm sure it'll happen because no one's perfect.
Sure. Yeah.
But I'm trying to heal as much as possible.
Yeah, to have the least amount of those.
To have the least amount of that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's beautiful. How have you seen people that get to heal from that place? What do they do in the world?
What do they do in the world?
Yeah, meaning like, do you see a difference with somebody that is like just working and just thinking about money, and then there's a healing that happens, and how that shifts? Because in this culture, specifically the US culture, right, there is a lot of emphasis on acquiring money.
Yeah.
And
it's
the
your
people,
identity.
It's your identity, and the people
it's also
that
your prison.
It's also your prison, and the people that run in this moment, this country, are people that made money. And so the power, like money equals power, is a very specific situation. And I wouldn't mind it if these people were healed and they were doing something different with their money.
Same.
So have you experienced any men, women, they, them, that have the money and that their thing was that, and then they healed and they were able to maybe do something different with their money?
And maybe do something different. So as a matter of fact, the foundation with which I just traveled to the Middle East is this incredible foundation called the Schusterman Foundation. It's a Jewish foundation. I would say very progressive, beautiful Jewish people who really want to heal pain and not exploit it. And so they bring Jewish people and non-Jewish people to Israel to then meet with other Jews and non-Jews and Palestinians and Arab Israelis and Jewish Israelis and the entire spectrum of identity to be a foundation that doesn't want to exploit one region or another, one trauma or the other. And instead, they're like, hey, everyone that has pain, everyone that's yelling about their own wound, let's put you all in the same room and invite you to listen with curiosity and empathy to each other. I think that is one of the bravest, most courageous thing a person with leadership can do. This foundation, it's run by women. They have a ton of money. The way they use their money, instead of a collection of cars and a collection of jets, they use it to transform society one person at a time by exposing themselves to the people that you would think are your enemy. And instead, they build bridges and they humanize each other. it is such incredible transformational work. And I want to go back to something else that you were saying as well about women and their pleasure and their bodies. To everyone listening, to everyone who was born cis female or like has a vagina, we are among the first generations in human history to be having orgasms as frequently as we do. To think that orgasms were looked down upon, to think for literally thousands of years, like think of all the blood that you have, like all of the DNA that you've collected in your body is the collection of DNA of thousands of generations before you, thousands of women before you. You're the first that untapped an orgasm. We've all been living with a clitoris for so long. We're the first that has, we've
explored like in this type of way, because before the clitoris was like, well, not before, there were times where women were like really open to their sexuality, but then it got punished and closed and all the things, and then Freud came with this theory that like a woman that was able to just achieve orgasms with the clitoris, she had severe trauma, and I'm just like, well,
it was.
And then the clitoris was looked down upon, and women were like punished for their clitoris orgasms.
Literally punished, like all over the world. There's still clitorectomies that happened just a few hundred years ago. The witches that were burned at the stake when they wanted to find the marking of a witch, the marking of the devil. If you had a little button-looking thing in between your legs, they would be like, "Oh, I don't know what this thing is. It must be the mark of the devil."
It's wild. It's
crazy.
Yes. You are absolutely right. It's like enjoying that part and also rediscovering and not feeling bad for not being, it's like I'm not in this space was like, you might be the first, and you might be the first one in your generation. There are others that maybe their mothers were really open or maybe like different stuff, but they're women in here, right, in this space that you might be the first ones that are exploring your orgasms, your clitoris, having these conversations out in the open in podcasts, hearing the word clitoris all over the place, hearing the word orgasm all over the place. And that is something to celebrate, that we are doing that for the good of the healing of the world, because the world surely needs more women in their pleasure.
I love that. Every time I orgasm, I make the world better.
Hell yes. That's
Healing the world 1-0 at a time.
Yeah, that's right. That should be the slogan.
That's the name of this episode.
Yeah. I love it. I want to go back to something that you mentioned, and because the world is so divided in this country, but also I see it in Mexico a lot, with the president that is right now, and it got really divided with the last presidency. And it seems right now that people I'm just seeing families being torn apart from their different points of views, friendships. And part of me really understands it, because it's really hard to talk to people when they're just like, this is the truth and you are wrong and all the things. But then as a defense mechanism, I feel like we do the same thing. It's like, no, you're wrong and I'm going to tell you why.
Totally.
And you mentioned something, which is, well, first up, building the bridges to have conversations. How do we do that in the world right now when it's incredibly divided? And then two truths can be true as well, because two things can be true at the same time. And I have learned that even like in my life, you know what I mean? It's like I can love someone deeply and then also just not want to see them.
Yeah.
Like that seemed the like two opposite things, but I have learned to really embrace duality in my life and in my relationships.
Amen, sister.
And in my relationships, because I do feel like once we are like, well, if I love you, that means all of this stuff. And if I don't love you, that means all of this stuff. But the world, it's a duality. I am a duality, like I am full of contradictions, and I have to be able to hold space for the duality in my life. And people, I feel like it starts with the self, right? Or like it starts with us to then be able to put it out in the world in a bigger stage, like politics, like what's happening in the world. And so how do we hold two things that might seem opposite to one another to be true?
Oh my God, what a beautiful question. I want to say that when I was single, whenever I'd be on my first date with someone, one of my first questions would always be, when is the last time you changed your mind about a closely held belief?
Oof.
And I actually ask that as someone that used to not be that way.
Wow.
I was so rigidly attached to my ideas of the world, and I thought I had absolute knowledge, and like I was right. And then slowly that started to crack, and then I realized, oh, the more enlightened you become, the more you realize you know nothing.
Yeah.
You get to have your beliefs about the world, but hold them loosely. Make sure that there's space for new information to enter. About duality, I think of what you said at the beginning of this about your father and how he was sort of teasing you and saying like, oh, you want to like forgive your ancestors cuando lucharon tanto por ti, like they fought so hard.
Yeah.
Those actually are not contradictory, but we believe that they are. We can hold both. Like we live in this world that's addicted to binaries. It's like the person's either right or wrong. It's good or it's bad, oppressor or oppressed, colonizer or colonized, and either you come from ancestors that like lucharon and were resilient and, fought, or you come from ancestors that like made crappy mistakes, and had their children inherit, their bad behavior. Life exists in the gray. It's not this or that, it's and. It's this and that.
This and that.
Yeah. And I would say part of, when I do my bridge building work, my conflict resolution work, whether it's with the left and right here or with religious and secular or Jews and non-Jews, before we even begin the conversation, I make sure that we all agree to some fundamental rules for the conversation, which is one, assume best intention from the other side. Even if they say something that hurts you, assume it's coming from a good place.
Okay.
Two, listen to understand, not to be combative. Three, curiosity. Listen with curiosity, ask questions, explore how they have arrived to their point of view. Something else that I also say is, and I think about this, with a lot of the warring groups in the US and a lot of the warring groups in the Middle East, you have a cycle of hundreds of years of this. No, but my pain. No, but my pain. No, but my pain. No, but my pain. And then just like that, we got a 1,000 years later. It's a competition of pain.
Yeah.
I think...
Who suffered the most?
Who suffered? It's the suffering Olympics, exactly. And I actually think, by the way, your pain is so legitimate. Everyone, all of your pain is so legitimate. But if you truly want to create peace and forge, big bridges, then the bravest thing you can do is, instead of shouting about your pain first, pause, name their pain first. Because the other person can't hear you and they can't hear your perspective if they feel like their trauma has not yet been named and honored and witnessed. So if you want someone else's listening to be available to your point of view, then the first thing you actually have to do is, it's almost like they're a cup and their cup is full of all of their pain and all of their ideas and all of their grievances. Name each one. Start taking them out of the cup. Know their pain better than they do. Name everything in them. Sometimes all pain needs is to be witnessed. When they believe that you have truly seen them and seen their pain, then they have room in their soul to hear what you have to say about your pain. So I say trade, like do the reverse. Instead of my pain, no, my pain. Start with, let's talk about your pain.
Right. Wow, that left me with a lot of insight into how, because I think a lot of like, from what space do I share what's going on right now? I don't want to be another shouting voice, another like voice that is just saying, no, you are wrong. My husband is from Texas, so I have a lot of people in Texas that when I go and I spend like a month there during the holidays, there's so many people that think differently than me. But when I see them as people, they're like, oh my God, they're so kind. And like, they treat me with a lot of kindness. And I decide to a couple of people to ask them, really, really ask them about why they believe what they believe without me wanting to defend it, which is the act of listening, right? The actual act of listening. And I feel we are missing the mark on listening at all.
Totally.
Because And that's also in our own lives. That's something that I had to learn in my relationships. That's something that I had to learn with my husband specifically. He is a person that he's such a good listener. And I thought I was a good listener. And then when he would tell me something, I immediately go into fixing mode, right? It's like, let me tell you what you should do, you know? And he would stop me and he was like, I just want you to listen to me. And that to me was a concept that was like so very unknown to me. I was like, what do you mean? If you're sharing something.
Yeah.
It means that you need my opinion. And my opinion, I will tell you also how you can fix this. Like, I have the solution for you, right? And so, and I'm a fixer because to me, I grew up with that fixing is a love language almost. You know, it's like, I'm giving you my love, which means like, here, I have the solution for you. I will get involved. Like, what do you need? You know,
that's another great quote, when fixing is a love language.
It is. It's like, it's such a, to me it was a love language. He was like, well, it's not my love language. It's like, I don't care for it.
Good for him for knowing his boundaries and knowing his needs and meeting them.
He was like, you need to, and because I'm so used to it, because that's how I grew up, right? There are moments that I will totally like do it. And there are moments where I will like immediately answer with like an answer. He will be like, okay, baby. And I'm like, oh no, I did it, right? You need me to listen. And there are times, so I have asked, now I'm used to asking him. When he's telling me something, I said, do you want me to listen? Do you want me to give you a solution? Or do you want me to get involved?
Wow.
Are the three choices.
Guys, everyone taking notes, that's so beautiful that you do that. That's great.
I had to learn because sometimes he does want my opinion, right? Sometimes he does want, but I'm not a mind reader. Like, I can read his mind when he wants something or when he doesn't need. And so and that's a lie that I feel like we sometimes encounter in the relationship world, which is like, if he's the love of your life, you have to like be a mind reader of your person. And I'm like, no, my person changes every day. So my person is always in evolution. So I don't know. I'm in constant discovering who he is, what he wants, and he will shift that, and he has to let me know, and I have to ask these questions.
Wait, that's also really beautiful, and I want to make sure like people caught that, knowing that your man, your partner, is still never a finished product, and every day he's a little different.
Yeah,
because I think part of the trap that we get in long relationships is you assume you know your partner. And by always assuming that they're going to be tomorrow morning who they were yesterday, you keep them small and you keep them reduced. Yeah. You do not become an agent of their growth and of their transformation because you just keep assuming that they are who they've been.
Yes.
So to keep the possibility alive that they're becoming someone else is really beautiful.
Yeah, it's somebody else, because also what ends up happening, right, is that we get stuck in dynamics of it. There's something that I feel like as humans, and that also relates to what's going on in the world, I feel like we get some sense of security, safety, something, when it's like, I know this person like the back of my hand, right? There's a sense of security with that. Like, I know what they're thinking. I know what their favorite color is. I know what their favorite food is. I know. And there are games of like, how well do you know your partner?
True.
And then we don't allow ourselves. I'm like, okay, yeah, well, that one's my favorite food last week, but today I discover a different food. And like, but now he has this idea and I have to be like, no, yeah, that's my favorite food, because I want to keep him like, oh yes, you are the person that knows me the most.
Wow.
And we have this sense of security around like, you are my person, hands, you know me the most, and nobody knows me like you. And we're preventing each other from constantly changing.
Oof. That's really powerful.
Changing and evolving and being like, yeah, tomorrow that might be again my favorite food. I don't fucking know. Like, my favorite color might be this one, and I discover a new one. And like, I now don't like chocolate, and be like, every Christmas I give you the same present because that's your favorite thing. You're not allowing the person to like evolve. And I know it's coming from a beautiful place of like, I know you. And family does that, family also does that. We love to put each other into this, like, I know you because I'm your mother, or like, my siblings will say things about me. And I'm like, you guys, that's not me anymore. And they were like, but I'm like, but I'm not that anymore. That was me 20 years ago. For maybe 20 years, I was that.
Right.
But I'm not that. And you're not allowing me to show you who I am now because you keep telling me who I was. And it's sad that you don't get to know me now. So maybe you don't know me, and maybe want to get to know me, you know, from this like space.
Right.
And that we still have all that past together. That doesn't get erased, but that doesn't mean that I am that person. And so I feel like that can be transmuted too to the world right now. We're just so ingrained in like, who are you? What side are you in? Like, who da. You don't get to change. You don't get to question.
You don't get to change. You don't get to change your mind. You don't get to evolve.
You don't get to question. You don't like, you know?
When someone of your tribe suddenly like evolves or questions something and is like, actually, you guys, the guys on the other side do have a point in this one thing. You call that person a traitor. Like, now you've betrayed us. Like, we really create these rigid boundaries where you are not allowed to evolve your values and your beliefs in the world. And when the other guy changes his mind about something, we're like, he's so weak. He like fell to the pressure.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I want to live in a world where people are not fixed.
Yeah. What advice can you give to the people right now in this moment? In this moment where it seems that the only way to fight is to fight with the same intensity as whoever the other side is. That the only way to win anything is with like anchoring down and fighting the other person and who are you and what color are you wearing and like fuck off, and either you're in this side or you're in the other side, and you don't get to question either side. You don't get to question, you know, the Palestinians, and you don't get to question the Jewish people that maybe also agree on the Palestinians. But nobody's getting, like, you either are from one camp or the other, and we're not questioning each other or what is a good way to talking, to healing, and to approaching this moment in time.
That's a beautiful question. One, work on you. Before you even leave you to go work on someone else, keep your half of the yard clean and in check. Work on you. Work on your pain. Two, own your voice. Own your truth. Like, what are your values in the world? Like, I see so many righteous people fighting on the internet. And I see myself in them because I have been them. But if you were to ask them privately, one-on-one, like, hey, do you believe in compromise? Do you believe in moderation? Do you believe in being kind even to people that disagree with you? They would say yes. And yet the lizard brain takes over and they become the worst of themselves that are incompatible with their stated values. So know your values. Own it like your own constitution for your soul. So work on you. Know your truth and your values. And we are living in such an exhausting era. I mean, wow, what a time to be alive, to be an adult. There's so much hitting at us constantly. Our bandwidth is finite. We will not have the energy to pick every battle. So do not even begin to engage in a battle with the edges, the extremes of both sides. Those people are not very movable. And if they are, it will require so much of your energy to move them an inch. So save your reserves. Save your, hey, let's sit down and have a healthy conversation about this for the people in the middle who are also willing to take a step toward yours as well. So just be really intentional of who you are giving this energy to.
Yeah.
And I would say finally, everyone has a different genius zone. Some people are amazing storytellers. Some people create content. Some people are visionaries and just have great ideas. And then maybe someone else executes the idea. They're like, hey, I came up with this great idea. You execute the idea. Know what your genius zone is, because we need all kinds of ingredients, all kinds of soldiers in the battle for peace. In like the movement for peace and healing, we need people with all that represent a different tool. You are a brilliant storyteller. You are really amazing at unpacking tension and empowering women with their sexuality and their sovereignty and pleasure in their bodies, but also kindness in their hearts. We need you to do what you do best, because no one else can do you the way you do you.
Right. Yeah.
And then someone else is going to have a different genius stones that adds a different ingredient to the healing arsenal.
I love that. What did you see that gave you hope when you went to the Middle East?
It's a great question. It's interesting because I both witnessed the capacity for humans to hurt each other. I equally witnessed the capacity for humans to be good to each other. So I'm getting chills. So for example, I went to the Nova Festival, the site of the Nova Festival in Israel, where hundreds of young Israelis, basically the burners, the Burning Man people from Israel, went to that festival. They were all like in their 20s and 30s, and hundreds of them were slaughtered. And I spoke to a survivor, this Jewish kid that happened to run in the right direction, hide, and he was able to get away. I spoke to him, but I also spoke to the Arab man that risked his life to save him from the Arab attackers. And I'm listening to that story as an Arab woman dating a Jewish man.
Yeah.
I'm listening to a Jewish man who was being threatened by an Arab man, but then another Arab man saved him.
Yeah.
And it was like my brain doesn't even know like how to process this.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
I also saw a lot of Israelis that I don't think it makes the news over here in the West, but a lot of Jewish Israelis who had been so deeply impacted by October 7th and before, you know, the different terrorist attacks that have occurred during their lifetime. And yet they had such a massive capacity to also hold Israeli soldiers to a high bar and hold them accountable when they were doing like abusive acts toward Palestinians. And they had such a capacity to hold empathy for Palestinian pain. So the fact that they were not choosing a pain, they could hold pain for their cousins that are still hostages, for their cousins that were slaughtered, for the women in their lives that were literally like that suffered sexual violence, that were raped and then murdered. To hold that incredible amount of trauma while you are the granddaughter of Holocaust survivors, and yet hold the IDF accountable in the moments when they've been abusive. Hold their leadership accountable and go into the streets and march against Netanyahu and fight for peace for the Palestinian people and fight against Hamas, who's also exploiting the Palestinian people. What gave me hope was seeing people with pain be multidimensional and have the capacity to hold multiple pains. We can hold more than one. Like if I could say one sentence to humanity, we can hold more than one. We can hold more than one truth. We can hold more than one pain.
Yeah. And that's what we're talking about, duality, that two truths can be the same, you know, like two things can be the same at the same time.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And we're not, and we have to be able to do that in our lives so we can understand that in a global way. So I would say, I will invite people to think, what are the dualities that exist within you in your life right now, whether it's in a relationship, whether it's in your life that you feel, well, I cannot be feeling this and that at the same time. Yes, you can be extremely excited, joyful, and sad.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and because our mind can be like, no, choose one, but you can be, and think in your life, where do you hold two dualities that seem to be opposite, but hold truth in you at the same time?
That's right.
And then be able to then translate that into the world. Once we experience it in our own specific lives, I'll feel that we are able to then see it in a larger way.
But
right. Like you said, we have to start with us in that way.
That was beautifully said.
And the last question that I asked everybody,
Sure,
which is, what to you is an orgasmic life?
That's such a great question. And I do love that question. What is an orgasmic life? An orgasmic life is one that's full of play, where you can be walking down the sidewalk and suddenly you want to throw a dance party. Why the hell not? Yeah. A life where everything is a game and everything's playful and your interactions with people don't have to be so heavy, especially since the world is so heavy right now. Be the antidote. Bring in joy and lightness and play in every room, including the bedroom. Make the bedroom fun again.
Yes. Hashtag. Instead of the phrase of Make America, it's like make the bedroom hot. We need to have hats like that in protest, make the bedroom fun again. Love that. Amen. I do feel like play is such an essential part of existence in whatever world. And I love being with people that play with me so much, you know, that it could be like we're going to be eating tacos and then skipping down the street. Or one of the things that attracted me most about my husband is he's so playful. Like he will put wigs and like mustaches out of nowhere and like accents and go to the grocery store like that, you know. And it's like, it's a way of, also, I feel like it's a way of revolution in a sense, you know, like if we take all of our joy and our play out, then there's no way for us to exist within.
Yes.
Within.
They want to rob us of our joy.
Yeah.
They want to rob us of our light.
Yeah.
Because a people devoid of joy, what is left is hardness and anger, and that's really easy to weaponize. But if we stay in our play, I am immune to your calls to invite me into your fighting. And I have a very similar partner. Like this morning, I walk into the kitchen, he's making coffee, and he's just wearing a Sesame Street hat of like one of the Muppets. I'm like, what's happening? I love it.
Love it. Play is so essential, and I love that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Miriam, thank you so much for this interview. It's been so healing. I'm sure it's going to touch so many people. I think we need to be hearing these conversations from this place, and not just a place of fight and not just a place of anger, but from a place of like truly inward and laughter with seriousness, and, you know, going from the clitoris to the war in one sentence, because that's what we are all meant to, that we're all encompasses of all, you know, of all the things. And if you guys need, you need to share this episode with whoever resonates. Please share it. This is the way that we keep spreading the word, and I am so very grateful. I will put all your social medias in the show notes, but please tell us where they can find you.
Yes, you can go to my website, miriamisa.com, miriamisa.com, my Instagram at Miriam_Isa. And thank you so much for holding this conversation. It was so fun. You're so beautiful. I mean, if people are just like listening to this in their podcast and they can't see your face, oh my God, she's so gorgeous.
Oh, right back at you, girl.
Thank you.
You're so beautiful. And you also coach in Spanish as well, right?
I do coach in Spanish as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, you know, for people who don't know much about my background, right, I used to be an entertainment news host for millions of people on YouTube. And now I host a different kind of conversation. I host conversations that transform people. I work as a coach for leaders and creatives and rebels and people who really want to like take their truth and own their self-expression and own their voice in the world and transform the world one conversation at a time. And for everybody listening, I would love for them to go to my Instagram and DM me. Okay, one of two answers to these questions. Either, what is a strong opinion you used to have that you changed your mind on? Because I really want to celebrate the power and the courage to change your mind about something. And also, what is one way in which you incorporate play in your life?
I love this. Go DM her those questions, because that's beautiful conversations. You're such a beautiful woman. I know you in person, and the work that you're doing is so powerful and so impactful, and I'm so grateful that you're in this world doing this.
Gracias,
so
linda.
Thank you so
Igualmente.
much. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, and thank you for sharing this space with the Orgasmica audience. And thank you so much. And I will see you guys on the next episode, which will be in Spanish. You know it. Share it, tag it, comment, question it, do all the things. Tell me what else you want to hear about, and I am here to be of service to you. Thank you so very much.